Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the most exciting kind of a podcast you could possibly get, because we deal with not only the trending news and the trending events that are happening, but because of a prophetic element, we reach into the future so that not only are we covering what's trending, we're covering what's coming up in the future and work its way back to the trending moment we're in right now. So right now we're having this massive period of instability in terms of global economics. You have the World Health Organization post-COVID reset, Klaus Schwab and Davos and the World Economic Forum trying to reset the globe, but then we had Russia and Ukraine colliding, which redefined the economic game of the global great economic reset. You've got China and Russia now working closer together. America as the dollar's reserve currency in the world under threat. And this nail-biting anxiety amongst all of those apocalyptic-oriented Christians who read The Harbinger and were ready for Armageddon all the way back when Hillary Clinton was trying to be president. And now here we are now with post-Mar-a-Lago under siege with Donald Trump and fears for the economy. What a great time to pause and say, what is God saying? Because when God speaks, he speaks peace to his people. Shows up with the disciples and says, peace, first thing he tells them. And that's the reason why our guest today is an ambassador of wealth, and I would say an ambassador of calm, because great business decisions aren't made in ruffled excitement. They're made in sober reflection and a kind of a divine calculus of where things are going. And the guy that I say is, in my book, the master of this process is Cousin Billy Epperhart. Welcome, cousin. It's good to see you again.
Hey, cousin. It's good to be with you today.
What do you see economically right now that we need to see? Pull the veil back and show us what your perspective is, and explain to us what you're doing that causes people to feel comfortable trusting you with their money.
Well, Lance, it's great to be with you. I think one of the things that we're living in right now is we've had the highest money supply that we've had ever in the history of America. And we've also just come out of now the lowest interest rate environment that we've ever had in the history of America. And so when you combine those two things together, you end up with inflation like what we're seeing today. So what happens and what's happening is that a lot of Christian people are waking up to not follow or go with the woke stuff that you see today. And they're beginning to look for direction and understanding, because here's what you got to know, cousin. The greatest wealth transfers that happen in history happen in turbulent economic times. And so if you know what you're doing and you have a plan and a strategy and a direction to go, then great wealth transfers can happen in this time. So a lot of people have been tuning in, following us and connecting with us and investing with us as well. They've been doing that because they hear what we're saying. And one of the things we're talking about is pro-values investing, biblically responsible investing, moving away from the woke crowd and all the things that the woke companies are supporting. But in addition to that, combining that with good economic fundamentals, so that not only are you able to steward your wealth well, but you're also able to create wealth. And so we're seeing a lot of interest that has come our way because of the awareness that people have of both of those things.
Well, I want to bring Mercedes Sparks into the conversation. Mercedes is the one who heads up a lot of our currency, economics, business, and cryptocurrency conversations. And when Billy says that, the greatest, wealth is actually happening during periods of turbulence, you've got a front row seat to that, because you and your husband Larry are a young couple raising a child, and so you're in I'm in the 60s and 70s category, but you've got a young, challenge ahead of you. What is it you want to know from Billy that you got to get access to in order to navigate?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, like we were just talking about, I mean, there's so much economic uncertainty, and our listenership goes everything from, people who have done all the right things. They worked 40, 50 years, they had some savings, but they're also living off of Social Security. They got fixed income. We've got people who are working like myself, who are trying to save, trying to figure out, where should I be placing money during this economic downturn right now? I mean, that's a big question I have. Is it real estate? Is it crypto? Is it buying businesses? Like if you have cash, where should you be putting it? And then I also love what Billy just said, because about like, how do we even build wealth? Like, how do we get to a place where, how am I taking what I have in my hand and working towards multiplying it? So any number of those things, Billy, I'd be really interested in hearing your comments on.
Well, I think now, in times of inflation, you're looking more for hard assets. And so we can talk about creating wealth and what that looks like right now. But as far as places to put your money, there's several kinds of places. Those who I may not have met or know that are a part of those that are following you, Lance, we talk a lot about real estate. So real estate is a really good investment in times of inflation. I think that real estate is really going to get good as far as purchasing real estate here in about another 6 to 12 months. Some markets, it's already softening really well, and it's going to be a great time to buy. And to be honest, I haven't borrowed money in a long, long time, but with where I see real estate going right now, I think I'm going to go borrow some money, and I'm going to buy a bunch of real estate beginning in about 6 to 12 months from now, because I believe that the population of America is going to start feeling the interest rate hikes that the Fed is beginning to give. I mean, we had 75 basis points just at the end of July. We had 75 basis points at the end of June. And so basically that's a 1.5% combined interest that has increased in what we call the Fed fund rate, which means interest rates are going up. But what that means is with interest rates going up, then house prices, even though supply is down in real estate, house prices are going to start softening, because it'll knock that, what I call the first home buyers market. Many of those home buyers are going to be knocked out, and the ones who can buy are going to have to step down a notch or two. So it's going to be a great time to be able to buy real estate. I bought some gold. I've been buying gold about once a month now. And so I bought a ton of gold here just in the last probably 18 months or so. I had a bunch before that. But the truth of the matter is that you have to go to hard assets in times of inflation. That's to protect your money. However, to make money, investments like real estate and being able to look forward, most people are starting low on the economic level when it comes to investing. So you have to find out what your advantages are. And typically your advantages would be what I call time, knowledge, and wisdom, knowledge, and then money, or the ability, if you have money or don't have money. Those three things mixed together allow you to be able to invest. So if, let's say, you're short on money, then you're going to have to really ramp up your time that you spend in it, and you're going to have to ramp up your knowledge or wisdom of what you're doing. If you have a lot of money, then you probably want to ramp up your wisdom and save your time. So it just depends on where you are. And we try to coach people and help people in our teaching and what we're even sharing today in all of those areas that we just talked about.
What about things like stocks and bonds, Billy? I mean, what are you thinking about with the market right now? Well,
right now with bonds, you have to go short-term bonds, and that basically short-term bonds would be a year or less. So long-term bonds, because we don't really know where interest rates are going to go. So because of that, your short-term bonds are your better. I like TIPS. Those are Treasury and inflation protected securities. And basically they're backed by the Fed, but basically they go up with inflation. So the interest rate that they pay, those interest rates are paid quarterly, and they are also set quarterly. So it's based on where inflation is. That's called TIPS. Those are good things. Then gold and real estate. And so when it comes to stocks right now, in some of the positions I have, I'm actually shorting the S&P 500. There's plenty of opportunity to buy stocks cheap right now. You have to make sure you're buying the right ones, but you've got to have the time. You have to have the time duration to be able to wait out the cycle.
Yeah.
I'm convinced the market is going to go down at least another 15 to 20%. It's gone back up to the S&P 500 to about 4,100. It had started inching down there for a little while in that 3,700 range. And so right now, I haven't looked at it today. I've been in other meetings, but I'd have to look today to see exactly where it is. But the truth is that the market, I think, has at least another 20% to go down. Some people say, that it's going to continue to go up from where it is. I don't believe that, because the interest rates have not settled into the economy yet, and people have not felt it. And so because of that, then we don't know exactly where it's going to settle out based on where interest rates are going to go.
I love that analysis. I think that's fantastic.
Can you explain for folks, let's go back to just because, we're covering a broad spectrum of stuff. We have some young people here that are also listening. Explain the role of bonds in the market. Like what does the bond do, and why are you saying short-term versus long? How does that work?
Well, the reason that you want short-term bonds is because basically the interest. So you always have to remember this with bonds, that many people who maybe aren't as sophisticated in investing, don't understand that bonds go up and down in value. And so if the yield goes up in bonds, or let's just say the interest rate goes up in bonds, then typically what happens with bonds that you're holding, say you're holding a long-term bond at a certain interest rate, and the interest rate goes up, meaning other bonds are paying more in interest, the value of that bond goes down. So what happens is if you have a short-term bond, then that short-term bond, 12 months or less, it's not as exposed to interest rates. And the way to understand it is long-term interest rates. It's not as exposed. The value of that bond is not as exposed as that. Now, you can hold a bond. You don't have to sell a bond. You can hold a bond and be paid the coupon or the interest rate on the bond for what you have. But the truth of the matter is that particular bond will go up and down in value depending on how interest rates fluctuate. So if you're holding a 10-year treasury bond and interest rates now go up, let's say another 2%, the value of that bond goes down. And so the face value of that bond decreases. So people today, right now, bonds are better for holding money or keeping money safe. And in this environment, it has to be short-term bonds, basically a year or less. And it almost functions like a money market account for you, other than, you got to wait a year and you'll receive your coupon and then you can reinvest. So bonds are something right now that I don't necessarily look at as being something that I'm interested in investing in unless it's short-term bonds.
Okay, I got you. Now, the other thing you said was kind of interesting to me was the real estate situation softening. I could see that. I mean, people that are, that are going to experience the costs of living going up and job stability could be going down. I mean, I heard recently that 35% or so of restaurants did not pay their rent last month, and so that's a forecasting on what's happening in the small business community, which is pretty devastating. So here's the question: if you own a home and you were thinking of selling, and you're in a hot market, is that not an incentive to sell the home and rent, and then move back in if you're willing to do it in 12 months? And look for deals on houses for a lot of people that are going to be bailing out of houses? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, from an economic standpoint, that's not a bad idea. From actually living, I think it's good to have your own home and a place to live and not have to rent. However, if somebody's willing to put up with the hassle of moving short term, I think for me, I haven't really bought a lot of real estate in the context of where I borrowed money in quite a few years now. I've always just paid cash for everything I've done. But right now, with where I think prices are going to go, I'm just going to buy a lot more real estate than I normally would. And the reason I am is because, first of all, the competition to purchase. Most people have been in markets that have been so hot that literally what you have to understand about real estate, that a hot market is what we call 3 months of inventory. And basically most of the good market, really hot markets, have had 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe 1 week of inventory in those markets. And most houses, when you go to write a contract on them, they have 20 or 30 contracts that are submitted on the same house. And so we're coming into a time where that's not going to be the case. I believe that. Now, I will say this, that the supply is down. So housing supply across the board nationwide is down. But I'm going to tell you, when inventory gets up to about 3 months, usually I would say 6 months, but coming out of where we are now, I would say when inventory in specific markets starts getting around 3 months, I'm going to start looking and I'm going to start writing contracts. And I'm not sure how much I'm going to buy. It's going to depend on the deals that I come across, but it's going to be a ton of stuff that I'm going to start buying because I believe the market is going to get really soft.
I want to turn it over to Mercedes, but you sounded like Kiyosaki. I listened to you guys that are, I admit that I'm in a different vein. I'm working always on the government, the 7 mountains, and education. I'm in a different zone. But when I come around to the financial part, you guys, you crack me up because you think different, and that's the reason why you got the money. Because I'm listening to Kiyosaki saying, my biggest challenge is I've got to get in lots of debt right now. I've got to get in lots of debt for tax reasons, and he's trying to do, and I think what he's telling on these broadcasts is the real estate market opportunities are such that he wants to be able to go in debt to leverage access to all that money to be able to buy the properties that he wants to invest in because there's a future in it because the timing is right. So it's just fascinating to get your mindset. And I want to go to Mercedes, but I want you also to talk about the booklet. I just went home and opened up a book. And I just want to touch on the fact that you have this publication. I want to get it out. Go ahead, Mercedes.
Billy, what I love about you, and we really haven't talked about on this broadcast yet, is that you have such a heart to train people in everything you've been talking about, because I think to the average listener right now, this can seem overwhelming. The economy seems scary. We're looking at the Inflation Reduction Act that's only just going to make inflation worse. And so, that's Billy, correct. I really want you to talk about, what can the average listener do right now? I know almost everybody in Lance's family has gone to at least one of your conferences. We had Karen Conrad on last week, just dropping the science on real estate investing. And so I really would love, just tell us, I think you've got a new book out, you have courses you offer people, because your heart is to make this tangible so people can get their hands around it. And, like Lance has this great saying, in the midst of a storm, God gave Noah a plan for a boat that would float. And my friend, you are the man with a lot of plans to help people build these arcs of safety really in a time like this. So will you tell us about, some of the things that you have that people can get a hold of?
Well, thank you, Mercedes. I think if we talk about the book, this is a brand new book that just came out in June of this year. And of course, we're doing this broadcast in August. It's called God's Road to Financial Freedom. And in here, I talk a lot about what I call the 30,000 foot view of wealth. How do you literally go from zero to hero financially? And in here, I have my trademark called the XXX factor. And we show you, no matter where you are on the economic spectrum, you could be someone that doesn't have anything whatsoever. And this gives you a plan, an actual plan you can follow, not only just to getting out of debt. We have what we call the debt snowball in here, how to get out of debt, including your mortgage in 5 to 7 years. But more importantly than getting out of debt, we have what do you do in the meantime, or what do you do after you get out of debt? What do you do to build wealth in your life? So we cover that extensively in this book called God's Road to Financial Freedom. And you can also go to wealthbuilders.org. You can go to the website. But I think right now you guys are going to give them as well, lancewallnau.com/wealth, and go to that website. And that will get you straight to the book here if you want to get it, God's Road to Financial Freedom.
That's awesome. And Billy, is there a special training that we could put on there as well? Something that for people who want to go deeper in these types of concepts, the real estate investing. I mean, Karen Conrad, who we had on a few weeks ago, is proof in the pudding that, if you put the time in, like you said earlier, if you get the knowledge and the time that you need, you acquire the skill set that you need, you can start making passive income. Her and her husband, Dave, I watch them do this with your training, your material. So is there a course also that maybe on that link we can add up there that if people want to go deeper with this material, do you have something we can offer them?
Mercedes, we have a power pack. I mean, A to Z how to. This is aimed at primary single family real estate, 1 to 4 unit real estate that we have. And I believe don't quote me on this, but I believe there's over 40 different sessions line upon line, teaching you how to know what markets to buy in, how to value a property when you're looking at it. How do you know if it's worth what you're paying for it? We give you all of those guidelines. We tell you on the step by step on what to do to rehab property, what to rehab, what not to rehab. We talk about not only how to identify what to buy, we go all the way over to property management. We deal with short-term property management like VRBO and Airbnb. We also go to long-term holds on rentals. We also teach you how to build a portfolio from scratch of real estate. And one of the key things we show people is how to make $100,000 a year tax-free for the rest of your life. How you do that with real estate. And it's easier than some people think it is. And so we cover all of that in great detail in what we call our real estate mastery course. And so they could go to the lancewallnau.com/wealth and get information on the course as well as the book.
I love that.
What I'm thinking of doing, Billy, is, Cousin, I think what we'll do is I'm going to take questions from the audience, and we'll have a seminar with you, a private one, because I think people that are hearing this, a lot of them know what you're saying makes sense, but it takes a while for them to understand what to do with their left foot, right foot. And with all the anxiety that exists out there about what's coming on in America and economic meltdown, I think the reason why I said that you're like a voice of calm, like the Bible says, be still and know that I'm God, is that you have mastery in the area of time, knowledge, and wealth, so that you're able to teach people where do they go during the storm. There are havens that God has prepared. There are places that God has prepared. And if you have the right kind of guide, the right kind of knowledge, you can navigate there. Because it makes sense to remember that when trillions of dollars are in the world and you have shaking, the money moves, but the money doesn't leave planet Earth. It just moves around. And so when we talk about a transfer of wealth, those that are educated, those that are rightly informed, those that are rightly aligned with the people that know what to do shall see exploits. The Bible says those that know their God shall do exploits, and this is the time for even financial exploits, and it's quite the contrary of fear and anxiety. It's to hear you say real estate is an opportunity when everywhere I'm hearing people that are uninformed say real estate's collapsing. What do you got to do? Everybody's throwing their money into gold. Well, where's your diversified portfolio? If the only strategy you've got is gold, you don't eat gold. It's part of a strategy. So lancewallnau.com/wealth. Sign up, folks, and we're going to circle back with Billy and Mercedes, and we're going to have a conversation about specific things you can do and how to make this work. So, Billy, thanks a lot for being with us, and I do want to talk to you in the next round about you're creating investment vehicles so that people can actually participate in. So I want to talk about that because some of your guys know where. It's like anything else; they know where the money needs to be put. So it's not all up to mom and dad here in a Bible going, "What are we going to do, honey?" It's like you've got some people that'll give advice, and I want to talk about that mechanism in our next interview. It's lancewallnau.com/wealth. Final thoughts?
I was just going to say, too, I mean, and I know we don't have time for it in this episode, we got Billy back, but what I'm loving about what he's doing is that he's also fighting against woke capitalism. That not only can you take your investment dollars, it's like stop supporting these companies that hate your worldview. And so they're doing strategic investments in companies that share our worldview. So I just think it's critical. And you're right, we didn't even have time to talk about it in this episode. So we got to have Billy back. He's a wealth of knowledge.
All right, cousin, thanks for taking the time out today. I love your book. I just discovered it yesterday when I got home from vacation. It was right there on my next to my bed, ready to read. So I'm going to devour that book. So when we come back again, we'll be able to talk about that, about why you're optimistic on real estate, practical next steps people can take. And I believe we'll move quickly on this. I believe people can have time to position themselves because those things are shaking and those things are a little confused. I believe wisdom is profitable to direct. So I believe you're on something, and you're going to give great direction for those folks. LanceWallnau.com/wealth and wealthbuilders.com to find out more about Cousin. All right, I'll catch up with you later. Thank you, Cousin.
If you enjoyed hearing from Billy Epperhart in today's show, be sure to get a copy of his book at LanceWallnau.com/wealth and pick up your copy